Rumors continue to swirl around the Utah Mammoth offseason, and we are going to separate fact from fiction on today's Locked On Mammoth.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we bring you Locked On Mammoth each and every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We appreciate you being here, whether you're an everydayer, a long-timer, or you're new to the show. Well, we hope to graduate you into everydayer because we're going to be here every day, right through the month of June and even into July a little bit with free agency happening. We've got the draft coming up. Eventually the conclusion of the Stanley Cup final, although Robyn, sometimes I feel like that ends in October these days. But it's a busy time right now for the Mammoth with rumors flying.
Yeah, rumors are always flying. This is a absolutely wild time if your team is not in the final, because you have all these rumors start hitting, and it's more like, I don't even necessarily rumors, it's just more of like people just spewing random stuff just to get attention, just to see what sticks, like who picks it up and thinks it's true, because maybe they saw a post from Pierre LeBrun rather than Pierre LeBrun, right? And they thought it was the same person.
Or there's like the real number one LeBrun or something like that. It's you have to check. And even now it's hard because verification's paid for. So even the fake accounts could get verified. But yeah,
Yep.
you do have to verify your sources. Things break, they get misreported. But even, Robyn, when it comes to the Mammoth, we've seen it, conflicting reports. And all of this started, honestly, I don't think the Utah Mammoth would be as much in the crosshairs as they are of the national and international hockey media were it not for them ending up with the number 4 pick in the draft. All of a sudden, everything has centered on the Mammoth and that number 4 pick.
Yeah, because like very rarely do you get a situation where not one but two teams made a massive jump to win in the lottery. Like who would have thought that it would be Islanders Mammoth winning it. So Islanders are getting number 1 overall pick, and then Mammoth getting the 4 because they can only move up 10 spots. But no one would have thought that.
No, and it's a gift for the Mammoth, to be sure, that has been dropped in their lap. And so let's start with that number 4 pick. I think that's one of the big sources of all these rumors that are going around right now, because if you're picking at 14, it doesn't have the potential to change your franchise in the immediate future. But if you're picking at 4, that can change your franchise in the immediate future. Now, whether you hold that pick, whether you trade that pick, Robyn, as I was compiling notes for this episode, I have read from different NHL sources, people who are plugged in and have been at this 20, 30 years, reporting different things. I've heard people say the 4th pick is in play. The 4th pick is on the move. The 4th pick is not going anywhere. The 4th pick will be traded for a top 6 young, proven NHL center. The 4th pick will be turned into a chance to move up. Like, I've heard all of that going around right now.
And see, I think what happens is people will hear what they want to hear, right? So when Bill Armstrong, when you first asked Bill Armstrong that question, when it happened, right, he was open and pretty much said, "Yeah, we're open to it. It's going to be in play. Like it, we'll see what we'll kind of see what the options are." But people can perceive that, and taking that info and taking bits and pieces. This is where misinformation and disinformation kind of tends to happen, where they kind of take pieces of what they want to hear, and then they will bring it severely out of context, or they'll do completely what the opposite of what they meant. And again, I think it's important to say that Bill Armstrong did say it was in play, but there was no guarantees it was being moved. There was no way it's like, hey, that's not going to happen. We're just going to listen. There was none of that. Like, he pretty much just said, hey, we're really just going to listen to offers, and it could happen.
So the facts around the 4th pick right now kind of start and stop at it is in play, and the Utah Mammoth are listening to offers on the 4th overall pick. Does not mean they're going to trade it. Doesn't mean they're going to keep it.
Yeah, it's still in a 50-50 zone, but like if you're saying that there's a guarantee they're going to trade for a top 6 center or a top 6 forward, or there's no way in hell that they are going to trade it and they are going to draft James Hagens or whatever, whatever it is, again, you're just hearing what you want to hear.
Now, speaking of which, if they keep the pick, speaking of rumors, let's truck right on into that, because a bunch of things came out of the scouting combine in Buffalo. And the reports came out, and we talked about it at the time, that the Mammoth had dinner with Michael Misa, James Hagens, Jake O'Brien, Brady Martin, and Porter Martone. Those are the 5 players they had dinner with. Brady Martin was nowhere on anyone's radar as far as the potential for him going to Utah or even that high in the draft, because Central Scouting had him all the way down at 11th for North American skaters. Some people said, oh, maybe he'll sneak up to the top 7. But all of a sudden, because Utah had dinner with him, now the Mammoth might, pick Martin at number 4 overall. And what kind of crazy reach would that be? And even Bill Armstrong himself has said, look, we wanted to spend time, whether it was dinner or not dinner, with all the players in that potential pick range as much as we could, learn what we could about them. That doesn't mean that player's on the radar to be picked at number 4.
No, absolutely. And there is what could be on Bill Armstrong's big board, who can be kind of where he sees these players are at. And again, there's also the potential, this is, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I'm not saying it's fact or anything, but I will say, like, if you wanted to, you can theorize, and I'm picking my words very carefully here. You could theorize that maybe because they don't feel like they need it, they could trade down, get a good prospect at a good roster player out of it in trading down, and get to a player in where maybe Brady Martin is within that right range. It's like, Brady Martin will be available at around this range. So like, we'll trade down. If you really want James Hagens, you really want Desnoyers, okay, you can trade up, and then we'll still pick our guy. But that's not a guarantee, because they still had dinner with all these other guys.
And here's the other thing that makes sense, Robyn, is that Utah, unless they're moving up for whatever reason, that movement of a pick would not happen until that pick is on the clock.
Correct.
Because if, I don't know, let's just say the Mammoth really want Frondell. Let's just say that's the guy that they've said, well, that's our guy, but we think he's going 3rd. But for whatever reason, he doesn't. Frondell slips to 4. Then you don't trade the pick. You make the pick and get the guy that you've wanted all along. But if you get there, Frondell's not there, and you're like, we could slide back to 6, 7, 8 and still be cool with who we come out of this pick with and pick up another asset in the meantime, then I could see that happening.
Correct. And I think that's the most important thing. And again, we already knew that of the other players that Utah did have dinner with as well. And I think it's important to note that, because a lot of them are, top players like Martone and like Misa. They're up there, right? They are top 5 picks consensus, right? They're among the top 5. Misa is on number 2, number 1 on some draft boards, and Martone is 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah, and again, to me, it's about picking the best player available at the time, and I feel like that's the strategy for Utah and their scouts, is they want the best, what they believe is the most talented player available. So I can at least appreciate that. But there's so much that could happen with this 4th pick. But just trying to separate the fact from fiction, just be careful of reaching. is a lot of what we're saying here, and you're going to hear a lot of rumors swirling between now and the draft.
I mean, I think the word, I will say this, the word reaching has been used too loosely in the last couple of years. I mean, again, people considered Arizona's drafting of Dmitry Shimyshev and Daniel Boot a reach at the time. And a lot of those people are actually eating their own words now. So
yeah, well, everybody's an armchair scout, armchair GM, you know.
Yeah, because everyone at the time, again, it's this is for a whole other thing. But people are always talking about NHL, and I'm like, please stop, please stop.
Yeah. Hashtag fancy stats. All right, Robyn and I are going to talk about more. It's a Mammoth rumor recap episode. We are trying to wrap our arms around all the offseason rumors. Up next, we're going to talk about the Mammoth. Are they actually going to make a big splash in free agency or not? And today's show is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, streaming, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and you actually start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, it kind of makes you realize, it made me realize where my spending was going, where my dollars were going. And in some places it was a little loose, understanding that it's like, wow, once you start to do the math on everything you're paying for, all those little expenses that you say, oh, it's 5 here, 10 here, 10, how fast it adds up. And now I budget smarter and I save more. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track your shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño, Locked On Mammoth Podcast. Hey, if you're still here and you like what you hear, please subscribe to the show. We appreciate you being a part of it. Also, if you're on YouTube, click that thumbs up for us. Helps us with the algorithm, helps you also with your algorithm to find more great hockey content just like this and the Locked On family of shows. So, Robyn, talking about all these rumors around the Mammoth. I know folks are still going to have questions, and you can certainly drop those in the comments or reach out to us on social about trading, keeping the fourth pick, what they're actually going to do, and we're going to keep updating you about it. But the other thing that's going around right now is, okay, the Mammoth had pick number 4 and about 20 million roughly in cap space coming up for this year. Now, in the future, and we're going to talk about this, they're going to owe some contracts to some people. You've got some RFAs coming up. Jack McBain is this year. Next year, you've got Cooley and Doan. So you have to have an eyeball on that. But right now, Utah could still make a splash because the cap will go up again next year. Still afford to give out those extensions to those other players, whether they're long-term, short-term, bridge, whatever. So, Robyn, we're hearing it from everywhere. They're going to make a splash. No, they're not going to make a splash. Well, they want to make a splash, but it's going to be a trade splash. They don't want to make a free agency splash. I mean, it's just, it keeps going around, right? All we know is that water will be flying. They want to make a splash.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes back to the reminder, and I'll say it again, I'll keep saying it, of Bill Armstrong pretty much being open and saying that Ryan Smith straight up told him, checkbook is open, spend how you feel you need, and we'll, and we'll make it work.
Let Bill cook.
Yeah, let Bill cook. But the important thing to remember, and again, everyone needs to be grounded here. Remember that Bill Armstrong, I said, you got to let Bill cook. You got to understand that he's on his schedule. He knows where to dole out the money. He's not going to go out and, give, Mitch Marner $17 million right now. Like, it's like to him, that doesn't make sense.
So here's a good indicator, I think, of where Utah might be willing to spend. If it was going to be a free agent splash, your highest paid forward for the next 3 years is Clayton Keller, 7.15. Just under that is Dylan Gunther at 7.14. And then your highest paid defenseman at 8.5 is Mikhail Sergachev. Now, that is the guy you have basically designated. That is your star player all the way through 2031. You've got Gunther through 2033. But Sergachev, they're all in on Sergachev. $6 million then for Dursey. He's in second place on the defense. I think if you're attracting a top line forward, maybe that $7 million is kind of telling you where that benchmark is. And it might be a little more, or maybe the 8.5 is telling you. But that is where I think we have to, as Mammoth observers and even as fans who are watching and listening, have to realize that just because the money's there doesn't mean it's going to be spent well. And I think Bill Armstrong's very aware of that and is not just going to go after Mitch Marner because I said, hey, I'd like Mitch Marner.
Yeah. And again, because it goes with how much money that player is going to ask for, right? Because like if you're coming up on a player who wants a 7-year deal at 12 million plus, all of a sudden where's the money going to be for when Logan Cooley is due to get paid? We're going to talk about that later on this week. We're going to talk because that's going to be a really important discussion because that's going to be huge. But that goes with everybody else too, who also is due to get paid, and due for new contracts. Is if you give a guy $12 million for 7 years, you restrict yourself on being able to pay guys you really want here.
And so again, separating fact from fiction, here are the facts. Number one, we know Bill Armstrong's going to listen to pretty much all the options. Mm-hmm. There are not, Robyn, a lot of teams that can say that they're in the free agent market with this kind of cap space, about $20 million, and have tradable assets. And Armstrong has said he's willing to deal some assets from this Utah team and have this 4th overall pick. That is quite a bit that makes, and again, we talk about why the Mammoth are in the press so much. All of these things together, like this is a delicious, tasty media snack. And everybody wants to take a bite of the apple, right? They all want to say, this is what Utah's going to do.
As long as a Leafs fan isn't trying to propose that Utah trades away Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley for a bag of pucks. Like,
for the rights to Mitch Marner.
It's unsigned. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. And the other thing too, Robyn, that when you're talking about a big splash in free agency, it doesn't have to be the biggest fish to be a big splash to Utah.
Right.
So it can be not Mitch Marner. It could be someone else who does come in at a 5 million mark, at a 6 million mark, who makes a giant impact on your team. Now, it might not be the biggest headline or maybe even the top 3 or 4 biggest headlines of the summer signings. But if it impacts the Mammoth in the right way, makes them the best team possible, that's what they're going to do.
I'm still on Team Besser.
Brock Besser. That is an attractive name.
And it's closer within a right dollar value for Utah. So, but again, we're still talking speculation here, right? We can go further into that later, but we're talking about kind of weeding out from the rumors and saying what's true. And, and what is true is right now, Utah's just kind of taking a look at their options, and they're going to make a splash. We just don't know how big or with what assets and what in what form.
And here's the other thing with the cap going up. I would expect a player like a Marner or whoever to test free agency and really try to push the boundaries of what money they can make. Utah can actually be a player and a shaper from the team side of what may be given out in the future. And believe me, I think most, not all, most NHL GMs are very cognizant of that fact. Now, you're always going to get somebody who gives out the crazy contract. It always happens. But I think that there's very much an awareness that, hey, the cap is about to get out there. That doesn't mean you still don't want cost control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can't look past that. And even though, I mean, look, the Mammoth are fortunate that they have an owner who says, yeah, we can spend it. So, all right. So the facts of the matter here on big free agency splash. Number one, yes, the money is available. The cap space is there. Yes, the Mammoth are open to sign and trade. Moving assets. The Mammoth are interested in potentially wrapping that number 4 pick, if it makes sense, to then not end up making a big splash in free agency. Robyn, that leaves us with the other speculative part of the Mammoth rumor recap that I didn't have enough space to get it on the video here, but trades. Speculation running rampant around trades. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. Tom Callahan and Robyn Leaño here with you on the Locked On Mammoth podcast. And Robyn, we've talked about the trading the 4th pick, keeping the 4th pick. Big splash in free agency or not. But the other way to make a big splash, and again, this is some NHL media have said, yes, the Mammoth are looking to make a trade because they don't want to spend that money necessarily right now. They're looking down the road, or maybe it'll be a little bit of both. It's not quite like it used to be with the sign and trade deals as much, but once you get past July 1, sometimes you do still see those things happen. It's weird. There's like that weird legal tampering window now, and you can talk to guys before anything really it's strange, but we all know that stuff happened before that anyway. So now do you make trades? And if you're another team looking at Utah, like if I'm I don't know, just random team GM, I think they've got a pretty loaded blue line. I think they've got some really good young players and some up and coming talent. I don't know that I'm picking Utah's cupboards for the goaltending, but I also realize they've got some kids in the farm system that if I am a team on the rebuild could make me look really good in a year or two. So there's plenty to offer if you're Utah.
There really is plenty to offer. And I think the other thing too is Utah's in a very unique situation where, and I have mentioned this before, I'll say it again, they are kind of on the next step of their rebuild. They still technically are in their rebuild, but they're in the next step. They're moving the next phase, moving into competitiveness, kind of going through the emergence period. But that also means that they have an excess of assets that they could really use to their advantage. They have so many more draft picks than they know what to do with. They've got so many prospects who they drafted who, not that they decided weren't going to pan out, but that just based off of the decisions that Bill Armstrong has made and the development that some of their other draft picks have done, kind of don't really have a huge future with the franchise, or other players who played well, they're a part of the team, but they just don't want to be there, or they kind of see them that they want to take a next step elsewhere. So that puts Utah in the situation where, yeah, they could really trade assets, and these players are still on a relatively decent enough value, especially if you can package them to kind of bring back and improve your team even more.
And don't forget, you don't have to make all these trades in the offseason. Some of them, there's 2 times when you're going to see it busy. And if you're new to the NHL, this is a good thing to know. Number one, in the early part of the season, injuries happen.
Yeah.
So, and it did to the Mammoth last year, right? We saw that the defense obliterated by injuries, training camp in the early part of the season, Robyn. And guess what? Bill had to be busy. He had to work the phones. He had to, work some magic, work the waiver wire just to get a workable NHL defense going for a while.
Honestly, I think from July all the way through the first month of the season, it's trade season. And then again close to trade deadline. There really is like very little down period for that. I mean, I still would love to talk about, again, even though in retrospect of how and ended up doing more harm than good in the future. Like, again, I like to talk about what my hometown San Jose Sharks did at the time when they, in 2019 or 2018 to 2019, when they traded for Erik Karlsson. It was a huge trade, but that happened right before the season started. It was like they had the training camp was about to hit, and all of a sudden Erik Karlsson sent down. Like, I'm sorry, what? So we see some of these happen. Sometimes we might not know about it until training camp.
Robyn, for the record, to this day, I don't understand that trade. I don't know what they were doing.
I was so excited at the time because I knew what he could bring. Norris Trophy winner with alongside another Norris Trophy winner. Hindsight, terrible trade, but that's not for the show.
There's only one puck. Karlsson and Burns. I just didn't know how they were going to do it. Turns out they didn't either. So the chance to always make a trade is there, and I think it will be the only way the trade gets done. So we'll wrap our arms around the facts here. The only way a trade like that gets done is if Utah feels like it wins by making themselves better, because next year the target is make the playoffs, right? That's where we're at now. If you don't make the playoffs, I'm calling it right now, middle of June. If you don't make the playoffs in the spring of 2026, your season was a disappointment. Is that fair? Am I being too critical?
I do feel like a lot of people are putting a lot more pressure on playoff or bust. I feel like there's a line to me you have to draw, because I feel like a true playoff or bust is difficult, because I think the Central Division, we already know, has always been really tough, right? The Western Conference is tough. But to me, if it came down to the last game, right? If it like we thought it could have happened this year, right? Between Utah and St. Louis, right? We're like, ooh, theoretically it could come down to that last game. If that happens next year, where it comes down to the very last game and it's off by a point, yeah, using the point disappointing would still be the correct term, but I don't think there will be an overreaction as if, let's say, they finish like 6th in the division to 7th in the division or something like that.
Look, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Dallas are better than you. You cannot let Chicago and Nashville leapfrog you, and you've got to be better than St. Louis and Minnesota.
Correct.
That's the way you're going to make it. So I think 5 teams probably make it from the Central again next year anyway, but I think you've got to find a way into that 4 spot.
You really do. And at the end, I mean, you take advantage of the Pacific Division still going through some turmoil, so do what you can.
Yeah, and you never know who's going to have a surprise turnaround. You really don't. So that's why we talk about it. We try to separate the fact from the fiction here on the show and do our best on the rumor recap. If you have any questions or some rumors that you've heard or things that you want to say, hey, what do you know about this? If you heard anything about this, feel free to reach out to us, whether it's in the comments here through the episode, or Robyn, where can they find us on social media?
Yeah, they can find us everywhere on social media at Locked On Mammoth. That's at Locked On Mammoth. It's literally everywhere. Primarily, I monitor the Twitter account a lot more. The Blue Sky account is also active somewhat, so you can also mention us there. But if you want to really get to us as soon as you can go towards the Twitter side. I'm at Robyn_Leaño there as well.
I'm on Blue Sky at Tom Talks and on Twitter at Callahan on Air. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you being here. Hey, tell your friends and join us for the next episode of Locked On Mammoth.